All right, probably streaming. Going to welcome everyone. This is the Christian Comic Art Society spotlight on Hector Miray and Faith and Fandom, and I'm super excited to learn all about Hector and all about Faith and Fandom. We've, you know, kind of crossed paths through CCAS and some of the things, and I've always enjoyed hearing from you, interacting with you, and wanted to get to know you better. So,
Sweet, man.
tell us how you got started with Faith and Fandom.
Overall, really got started with it. I started attending cons about 11 years ago, 12 years ago. And in that process, I really loved it. Like, I've always kind of been in the geek world, nerd world of things, but like only so slightly. And I went to my first con and loved it. And so the next year I'm like, okay, I'm going to cosplay. Then I went to, and I cosplayed the next year. And then at the con that I was going to, was the biggest con in the Carolinas. And they didn't really have a cosplay contest. Like, it wasn't a thing that they were really doing as a whole, but I don't think anybody was really doing that then yet. And in our area, at least. So I was doing a wannabe YouTube channel of me trying to have my own little thing. So I actually went around for a whole weekend and filmed every cosplayer and gave them a number and did a YouTube based cosplay contest for them. And like, it turned out really well. And in fact, the con actually put my cosplay contest on their website. And so I was like, man, I can actually do some good in this environment. And so Faith and Fandom really kind of birthed out of, I wanted to be specifically in that one arena, I wanted to be the salt and light for that one arena. I'd never been to any other cons. I didn't know what other cons looked like or any other culture. I'd only literally been to the one. And I was like, so I got the idea I was going to write a devotional book, but it was going to be like a one-time thing for that con. I would go one time and like basically have an outreach weekend of doing that. And and with that, I figured that going through Artist Alley was the best way to go, because didn't want to be a street preacher. and I also didn't want to get kicked out of the con for just randomly passing out like stuff inside. So I was like, Artist Alley is definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of went at it with that mindset. And right after I made that decision, one of the camps that I speak at asked me to write or asked me to do a superhero week and told me I could do whatever I wanted with it. And so I was like, okay, this is good timing. So I went ahead and wrote what would be the first 8 chapters of the first Faith and Fandom book as their curriculum for the week of camp. And with that, just kind of took off from there. I did my first show, and God opened so many doors in a 1 weekend time frame that I was like, okay, this probably won't just be a 1 weekend thing. And that there were cons that were like, we do church services on Sunday if you'd like to come lead our church services. And we could really use this type of thing at our con. And like, it just kind of networked and opened some bigger doors for that. And so that was kind of really the birth of it.
Nice. And where has it gone from there?
Oh man. Well, I got to hang out with you. So I mean, that was that's like started at the bottom. Now we're here. But no, it kind of progressed. I think the first year I ended up doing 5 shows total. And because like once I started, I was like, oh, I actually really love this. And then let's say 2019 being the peak of everything, I was doing 25 shows a year. Like basically every other weekend I was at a con, and sometimes like multiple weekends at different events and stuff like that. And it's had its cool moments of like setting up with like one of my favorite 2 of my favorite rap musicians in the Christian music industry are Social Club Misfits and KB, and I actually got to set up my booth at their event.
Oh, nice.
So it's had its fun moments, but basically it's gone to about being present at about 20 cons a year on, when the world is normal, and podcasts and a lot of memes and
So many memes.
so many memes. It's just like, it's fun, but it's good. And what the craziest thing is, it's one of those moments that I was really glad my daughter was with me. My 13-year-old was with me. This would have been 2019 as well. No, this was February 2020, because this was the last show before the pandemic like shut everything down. We were at a con in Richmond, Virginia. Never been there before with the booth, and a woman drove 4 hours to tell me that she really appreciated our memes.
Wow.
She's never read our books, never listened to a podcast, but she just likes our memes.
Well,
and
excellent.
and I was like, okay. I was like, I don't know that I've ever felt that way about a meme, that I would put 2 hours of time into it, let alone 4. So that's kind of been a big thing. It's been a large part of my passion in ministry for over 8 years now. And the church that I'm pastoring hired me 6 years ago, and they knew that this was a thing when they hired me. Yeah. So they take it into consideration, and they just, like, when I'm gone to a con, they're like, it's just part of the job. It's good.
Yeah, well, that's great. It's fantastic. My
youngest daughter has never existed in a world where this doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So she's kind of like,
this is normal. Cons all the time.
Yeah.
That's good. So how do you find the convention experience, and how's it been for you?
Man, I love it. I love the convention experience. It's the lamest complaint, but like, I think the worst of it is smiling so much. Yeah. Because when people walk by, you want to actually give them a genuine, like, hi, smile. Yeah. You don't want to like just be playing Nintendo Switch and like, what's up, and just like exhort, but just smiling at people and interacting. It's honestly just getting to be a good part of the experience, but also one of the con goers are always, of course, a big focus of reaching out to people and encouraging them with what with the gospel there. But one of the biggest ministries that I've found and with the con experience are other artists. Because on any given weekend, I'm going to be sandwiched between at least 2 other people that are stuck with me for a few days.
Yeah.
And I've seen those moments of dread where someone who might not be of the same ideological standpoint walks up with their cart and like and like has that, oh no, I'm stuck with these guys. But I've got to build some really solid relationships with people over the years that don't think I would have ever had anywhere else. 2015, I was placed beside an artist who at that point had a lot of bitterness towards God. And even some of the material, the comics that he was making at that point were like towards God in some ways. And then fast forward to 2 months ago, he's like active in his faith, pursuing the Lord, but he was getting married, and I got to officiate his wedding.
Wow.
And so to go from we're booth mates, with some tough conversations, to actually getting to present the gospel at his wedding in a room full of artists. And it's just been some really cool moments, but most of that has been relationships built with other artists and vendors. And I've the con circuit, especially where we're at in the Carolinas, at any given point there's a con 2 hours from you if you're willing to drive. And most of these folks were like carnival folks. We roll we roll in, we roll out, and we interact. But I've got relationships where I've got to pray with these people. I've got to do marriage counseling with some of these people. I've got to their kids are friends with my kids. I'll literally have artists call me. He's like, hey, is your daughter coming? Because my daughter wants to come.
That's right. She won't come if your daughter's not coming.
And so we have those relationships, and it's really good. Or people that will literally make things or hold on to things for like 6 months to a year to the next time.
Mm-hmm.
I would do that. Like I've even made good acquaintances with the South Carolina Department of Revenue. Like they're on the field person. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're on a first name basis because in South Carolina you have to file a bunch of taxes for this.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I'm on a first name basis with the tax people
Yeah.
from the shows. So it's been really cool.
Yeah. So
But
having done it so often, you're becoming a staple at a lot of these shows, right? Like we're here every year or every however often, and you get your Faith and Fandom table. I know when Joe spoke, he was saying that they use your books for geeky guys discussions, which is really cool in that way. So, how many books do you have for Faith and Fandom?
for Faith and Fandom, there are 7 books and a kids edition, which the kids edition is just the age identifiable stuff for like the first 5 books. I wanted something that like all like as far as content, all the books are obviously clean, but like a kid's not going to read through like what's Battlestar Galactica or stuff like that. So I wanted something that kids could like identify. Like I know everything that's in this list. So I let my 8-year-old actually pick out what chapters went in that at that time. But there's 7 of those so far, and 8 is, let's say, 60% done. The pandemic really like jacked our life up and everything else, and then then with all the medical things we've been dealing with, it's I kind of just like gave myself permission to not be on a schedule this year. Because usually my schedule is right from October till March, turn it in March for editing, processing, and everything else, get it out by May and June. So that's usually like a strict regimen, and I'm like, no, I'm okay.
So give yourself that space.
The 8th one will probably come out sometime this year, but like writing those has been great. And somewhere maybe 2 years ago, I don't remember where it was, but I started doing weekly audio devotionals for Love Thy Nerd. They have a radio station now. That's LTN radio. Before that, it was called Back Row Radio. And they do 3-minute they had me do 3-minute audio devotional. So basically like a really quick Faith and Fandom devotional online. And so like I've done maybe 100 of those is what it feels like. And so it's just like doing a weekly one of those kind of has like taken away of the urge to, okay, I need to write, I need to create, because I've got that weekly. And then this 41 weeks ago, my local newspaper was like, hey, will you write a weekly devotional for the newspaper? So I'm like, okay. So like finding time to write when I'm doing other stuff like that. And plus our church, we write as a team, because we have 3 locations for our church. So we'll write as a team. And then sometimes it's like you're writing this whole series. So I've just finished that. So or for a series we were on. So I'm always writing. It's just not always Faith and Fandom. But then another weird thing is like writing with this is mostly all that Faith and Fandom comes is like the reflections on the stuff that I'm watching or enjoying or whatever else. And there just wasn't a lot going on last year. And so it's just like kind of dry.
Content is dry. What have you seen at the movies? Nothing.
And so it's usually like, and that's the thing, usually from January to March, like all the big stuff right before the summer stuff is dropping. So you'll get like a Marvel movie, a Disney movie, a video game, and it's just like crickets the whole time.
So the Faith and Fandom is a devotional structure in terms of the way the books are.
That's each chapter stands on its own. Like there's no order, there's no you need to read the first book or anything like that. It's each single chapter in each book will basically just be pointing out one theme or a series of themes in a piece of content, just kind of using it like an object lesson for a sermon. There's not usually like the study questions or things like that on its own, just because I'm not that strategically minded when it comes to things of that nature. But usually it's there'll be questions and reflection points within it, but it'll be somewhere between a sermon, a devotional, and an essay, like in its structure.
Yeah. And then you'll touch on films and comics and like that you use.
Yeah, usually it's there's a lot of movies, there's a lot of TV shows, a lot of video games, pop culture stuff in general. And like I think there was one that that's like about the different types of people you meet at a con, and like kind of bracketed it down. But and so like a lot of people say like, oh, you need to do this one, you need to do that. And like one of the things that I try and do is to do it as spirit led or organically as possible. I never want to be like, we're doing this chapter because we need this. It's like, people are saying, oh, is there going to be a Loki chapter? Like, I'm still watching.
Yeah. We'll see if something comes to mind.
Yeah. But like, that's one of the things I've been very adamant about, is not to just the shoehorn for the sake of popularity. But yeah, there's usually a lot of stuff that comes through, and there'll be a lot of times I'll make notes on my phone, and it's kind of it's an annoying tradition in my household that like if we're watching something and there's a line that's profound, or something that sounds like it could be a good biblical quote, my family literally just pauses it.
Nice.
And like makes like a face and looks over at me. But or I'll like, all right, rewind that, let's get that clip. And like today we were taking a lunch break and watching Dragon Ball Z. My kids and I are making it through all of Dragon Ball Z, and I was like, oh, that's great, rewind that. I'm like, yep, recording it and putting it out and like making notes and stuff like that. So my family's used to doing it to the point of they just know that's in there. We were watching the Loki finale, and no spoilers or anything, but my daughter literally just wrote it down and passed it to me because I didn't have my phone in my hand. there was a quote that I just went, I didn't say anything, I didn't went aha or anything, I went and she's just like,
before he pauses it, let me write
it. so that's just kind of like how my family operates in general, and knowing that, and my kids really enjoy it, and just getting to see their responses to it is always fun too.
Yeah. Well, and I would assume that you guys are into a lot of the same stuff, and that helps you spend time together and connect and have a lot of the same.
Oh, it is. And like, because there's stuff like we waited forever to watch or not watch together, different time spaces and things like like, but that's one of the hard parts, is as busy as our family is, we don't get to watch everything as quickly as we'd like because we have to have all of us in the room. And it's just like, okay. Like the only things that I've passed on Cobra Kai currently, because my wife really loves
original Karate Kids.
The original Karate Kids, and I didn't watch Karate Kid until the Hilary Swank version. And so it's just like I don't have a deep love, and I was like I don't really want to watch those movies right now, so y'all go ahead. So like they're literally watching Cobra Kai, and my daughter bought like a Hot Topic Cobra Kai shirt yesterday or something. I'm just like, okay. Yes, but on a lot of that stuff we connect. Like it's a family staple in our house that we especially in the pandemic Disney Plus era of like, we all schedule, all right, Star Wars Day, it's Marvel Day, and do all these things. Like the episode, I knew that Ahsoka Tano was going to be in a specific episode of Mandalorian before, like, as I was like, I knew it was going to be this episode. So like I got everyone up at 5 a.m. because it was like Thanksgiving weekend, and I'm like, I'm not getting this spoiled. So it's like we're all got to get up, watch Mandalorian at 5 a.m, go back to sleep, and that's like my family wasn't like, that's crazy. They're like, okay, we did this. Yes, we all understood. We did the same thing with the season finale of Mandalorian too, and it's just like we're like, okay, we're down, and so we're here for that. and
Excellent.
it's fun.
So where do we find that people at the cons thing that you, is that in one of the Faith and Fandom books?
Oh,
Which
that's it.
number?
I want to say that's in book 2. And there's also, if you, I don't know if it's on our I think it's on our podcast too. Like if you dig deep,
Okay.
it's one of those things because I ended up using it as a chapel service at a con,
Nice.
and I think I recorded it there for our podcast as well.
I see. And where can people usually get them? You have them on Amazon and other places?
Amazon's the primary, and basically anywhere else you find them, they're coming from Amazon anyway. They're just outsourcing them.
Yeah.
Um, all the books are on Amazon, but one of the things that we did during pandemic, because we weren't going to cons, I really felt, and we were planning this ahead of time, but it's just like pandemic just seemed like the right time. One of the things I really wanted to do was since we weren't going to be in cons as much, because I don't want to do, like, I love this, but I don't think I have the capacity to do this at the speed I'm doing it forever. One of the things we wanted to do was actually have all of the chapters of all of the books available for free on the website.
Oh, nice.
And so that's one of the things that also ate up my writing time was going through and formatting it, of where if you go to the website and go to the blog section, every chapter of every book is there.
Wow.
Including, it's not great for sales. It's like, hey, and that's usually, but it's when I'm at cons now, I'll be like, people that, oh man, I love this, but I don't have any money. I'm like, well, cool. Here's a website. You can blah, blah, blah. But people are honestly more likely to read something if they spend money on it in a book than if you just point them to a website, but it's a resource. But, that I've even been doing that with book 8. All of the chapters that are written for book 8 are up. Just, I saw that as a kind of a model that John Acuff used to do when he was doing Stuff Christians Like, if you ever saw that. Stuff Christians Like was his blog back in the day. And so he would blog, and then he literally turned his blog, he took the chapters from his blog and just put it into a book and did it that way. I was like, and I'm learning those are different audiences anyway, but I wanted to put the resources out there for them. So Amazon is the primary place if you want books, but if you just want the content, it's on the website. But also one of the things we're doing, since I'm working on the book 8 slowly, is as soon as I do a text version of the chapter, we'll go ahead and record an audio version of it.
Oh, nice.
So the audio version's on the podcast already, and then basically by the time book 8 drops, there's a whole audio book.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
excellent.
cool.
So having been in this sphere, are there any type of titles or shows that you find like seems to consistently, or you're like, there's so much on this that I'm like, we'll do more blog or chapters? Like, I'm gonna say Star Wars just as an example. It doesn't have to be Star Wars, right? But like, oh, this show or this game like just seems to feed me content. A couple
Doctor Who is a big one. In fact, there was one book that had like 2 chapters on the same episode. But like from different perspectives. But like Doctor Who is one of the biggest ones for me, and I would say that just because like I feel like when it's done really well, it does such a spiritual and character focus in general that it just lends itself to that. Every book almost has Doctor Who, Batman, and there was one other one that made it. Doctor Who and Batman are consistent, and I think the Batman may just be from the sheer content, because I read a lot of Batman comics.
Yeah, I do too.
And honestly, specifically on that note, Tom King, Batman. Tom King is just thick with that stuff.
Dude, he'll throw in scripture.
Right.
I'm like, I'm reading Psalms right now. What's happening?
Well, and that's the thing. Like, there's one in so there. I'm on book 8. There is a Tom King Batman chapter from book 4 on in every book. Okay. And like, so like, he just did a story in Batman Black and White #2.
Okay.
It's the opening story, and it's an amazing story of where the entire thing is there's an orphanage that's burning, and an elderly pastor had been running in and out of the orphanage rescuing all the children. Batman shows up, helps, but the pastor goes in one time too many. The church collapses around him, and so Batman's like screaming, "Father, Father," and trying to like get him out. And he knows he's not going to make it. So he literally just pulls his mask off, sitting in the burning rubble, and sits there and cries with the pastor. He's like, "I failed you." Well, and like he's like, talking about, he's like, "You didn't fail, you tried, you did your best," and stuff. And they literally, the pastor says, "Have you read the story of the unjust judge?" And they sit there in the burning rubble of a church and have a whole discussion about prayer.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, Tom. And I had the severe blessing of, at one of the biggest shows I've ever been to, they put me next to Tom King.
Whoa.
And like we could see each other the whole time and like everything. And I was like, I brought him the first book I had written that had some of his stuff in it. I was like, "Hey, wanted to let you know that Wonder Woman chapter, or that I want to say it's Batman 39 and 40 out of his run, where Batman and Wonder Woman are trapped in a
where they're fighting all the demons and stuff.
They're fighting all the manifestations of sin, and the whole thing about integrity. And like, I was like, "Dude, that was one of my favorite things you've ever written." He's like, "Everybody hates that." I'm like, "Oh man, my daughter, when she read that and the whole discussion about integrity, and Wonder Woman would knock his head off if he lacked integrity," I was like, "Oh, that my daughter loved that." And so I gave him a copy of book 5 that had that chapter in it. And I was like, "Oh," and it's just really cool to like, I gave it to him like the first day that I got to meet him. And then it's like, they literally just come by later, and it's just sitting in Tom King stuff at his booth. And I'm like,
nice.
Cool. I was like, I don't know if this ever went anywhere, you have read it, but like, so when I saw him at shows later and stuff, we had that recognition. But like, oh man, Tom King stuff absolutely lends to it. There's plenty of stuff in Star Wars. And I spending a lot of time in Clone Wars over the last couple of years was good, just for some content. And there's some really great stuff now. But Doctor Who for me, and a lot of Tom King Batman, are some of the easily most spiritual themed stuff in there. And there's plenty of stuff in the Marvel cinematic universe and everything like that. But but those are consistent. Like you can bank that Doctor Who and Batman are in most now. We haven't had Doctor Who in a minute. Like not consistently. So but beyond that, those are pretty frequent ones.
Yeah, that sounds good. So how do you feel like you were saying, you went to your first con is kind of how it all started, right? So how do you feel like the ministry there, or just the outreach and interacting with people, how that is for you and your ministry?
It's gone really well in terms of like, I'm not gonna just yell at somebody when they walk past the booth or anything. But like, the fact that I've been consistent in certain areas has built a safety dynamic with people that were uneasy. I had one person come up to me at a show and said, "I've seen your booth for 6 years and was always scared to come talk to you." And then we finally had conversations. Or a lot of times we'll get the response of people who automatically think, because we're there representing Jesus, that we're there to condemn them. I just remember we were at a big show in Raleigh, North Carolina. This one came fully equipped with near San Diego level street preachers. Outside, and this girl made it into our booth in cosplay, tears running down her face, and she's like, "Look, I just need to know, does God actually hate me?" And some conversations with that. There's been times of just where we get to have those full-blown conversations, and it's provided some really great fruit with that. I've got folks that'll like not talk to me at a show but email me later. Like I've got consistent emailers that like pose questions and want answers, and they may not even remotely be believers yet, but they're open to some questions about it.
Mhm.
One of the cool things is just some of these shows are open to letting me have full church services and
Mhm.
stuff like that, and so that's been really neat. The last one that I did a full church service at, um, we had more people at my geek church at the con than we did at my church at home, like
Wow.
that Sunday morning. And I'm like, I was like, either way, I'm happy. So, and there's a show that had been canceled for about 5 years, and they're starting back up, and they're like, I haven't applied to be a vendor or done anything like that, just because I'm not exactly focused on that right now. And they called me and said, you will do geek church, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
sure.
Yes, you asked, so I will not say no.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if there's a way around it, I'm not going to not say no. So it's been good in those interactions, and that it's provided some good opportunity for doing that. And another cool thing that's worked well is I've got a friend who runs a con event called a Nerd Slam, and where it's basically people competing over their knowledge of pop culture.
Mm,
So, but because I'm a professional nerd, I'm one of the people that judges them or tries to
okay.
trip them up. And so
Okay.
they'll put us on main stages at shows where, like, if they put two people on a stage, like, this person who is claiming Batman knowledge has to have
Mhm.
more Batman knowledge than this person that has Harry Potter knowledge. And
Okay.
I'm supposed to ask them both questions that'll trip them up. And,
Yeah.
like, just doing that, like, it puts our foot in the door for to be able to have more panels and easier
Yeah.
discussions and stuff like that, because we'll have people come talk about that
Yeah.
and be able to do more, and shows that'll invite him as a guest to make that happen.
Yeah.
And that means, well, if you're inviting him, you have to bring Faith and Fandom in. So it's just like,
Yeah.
great.
That's a great idea. I like that. I like that.
We have a blast with it, and it turns out a pretty big crowd.
Yeah. I should try to do that. CCast. Some of the stuff we do. Yeah, and I like what you said, of just being the consistent light there, right? Like you mentioned the person after 6 years, like watching you for 6 years, right? Seeing the
Yeah.
interaction of people coming by, like kind of warming up. Okay, it took me 6 years, but I
And
see
that
that people aren't scared and people recognize you, and now I can come over.
and the majority of the responses are normally good. I mean, you're in this world enough to know that, like, everybody's not going to be really happy about a Christian presence, but they're
Hmm.
usually not animosity towards it.
Hmm.
But it's the majority of the response has been overwhelming, and the times that there's been, like, really solid fruit has been really good. We were at a show, I don't even remember where it was, it's been a few years. There was a lady that was just standing back looking at our booth for like almost an hour, just
Mm.
arms crossed across the, like, and she's like, what is this? And we finally talked to her. She's like, this is what I've been waiting on. I've been telling myself that I could do manga focused on the gospel for years, but I've been too scared to do it. This tells me I can do it.
Yeah.
And so it's been some, good, but I honestly think, like, in terms of outreach and missions and things like that, a lot of times people want the big, oh, we had this many salvations and
Oh
converts.
yeah.
It's like, dude, if I can be salt and light and plant some seeds,
Hmm.
that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like, because hopefully what they'll get from an interaction with us at the table or reading a book later, something is going to be some seed that plants
Yeah.
or at least waters what's there.
Yeah.
Because being the one to harvest is overrated. Like, because it's the same gospel whether you do one or the other.
Yeah.
And I'm perfectly fine, like, planting some seeds and peace out. That's what the church is for.
That's all
Like,
right.
that's yes, like, I'm not going to have a full discipleship relationship
Yeah.
on, like, while you're wearing your con badge. It's probably
Yeah.
not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're right. I mean, seeds of like a lot of times, what I found is people will like, this is really my first interaction, or not maybe first, but like oh, you're different than I thought, right? Like this, I was thinking Christianity in this way, but like this is actually warm, and you like the things that I talk like. You like we can talk about Batman, and like you mentioned the street preachers. Like you're not out here to condemn me, right? And um, kind of being that better alternative.
That's just kind of been the goal for the longest part of it. And really, really loved doing it. And we've got to make some good friends and do some good stuff. And just cool opportunities have come from it. But like it all, like literally the interactions on a weekly basis of talking to people at the shows and the other vendors and stuff, that's the heart of it.
Yeah, yeah. And do you feel like the other like podcasts and other things you get into have sprung from that, or it's just expanded like your ministry and your presence in different areas, right? Like this leads to this podcast, which leads to
I feel like it's covering different parameters of it. Like the idea for us to branch over to podcast came from a guy who's not even remotely a believer. He's just like, hearing you guys talk at a con is interesting. he's like, I don't even believe everything you believe, but like if you guys had a podcast, I would listen to it. So you should probably do that. And then like the radio thing, like that was like doing 3-minute audio devotionals. That's a great idea. I don't think I've ever would have ever done that. And then it's like, but the thing that I've learned, it's a lot like the way the body of Christ works, in that every part has its function, and there's some functions you're going to reach easier than others. Like I've had people that have come to talk to us at the shows that have never read a book of ours, but listen to the podcast. And like that one lady that literally just came for memes. It's just like people have the things that they're going to connect with. And if I can have we call them like landing or on ramps or landing sites or whatever, people that can make contact with. If we have something that can make contact with people to kind of get them into the conversation, I'm open to doing as much. I don't want to run a YouTube channel. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt, I'm over it. I worked screenwriting for Clever Movies Screen Junkies for 3 years. And I'm like, and that was after trying to make my own YouTube channel. I'm just like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Like it's fun, it's great. Oh, I'm good. If we have somebody that kind of wants to join alongside and be like, hey, let's produce YouTube content, God bless you, go ahead. I'm comfortable where I'm at with this, but like doing different things to give people an on-ramp, I'm always down for. They've sprung from it, but and maybe they're eventual branches of it or whatever. Like I feel like the website with the chapters available was an inevitability at some point, because we've been talking about it for years. And then there's some things that are just like, well, this is just fun, so I'm just going to do this for right now, because it's like I make nerdy candles. And like I've got, if you've ever look at my booth, I've got like D20 candles and Death Stars and BB-8s that I make candles, and that's just like, they smell good. And anything that smells good at a con is a win. They're pretty, and like I'll get people that would never be interested in a Bible study, like, ooh, is that a candle? And like have a conversation, like, and then like, well, what's this? Like, because here's shiny candles and here's books, and like, not that it's a bait and switch, but man, like if it can start a good conversation, I'm down for it. But those are things. I don't know that there's anything specifically. I would like to do more chapels at cons, but I'm still trying to get really comfortable at cons again. There's the biggest con in the Carolinas is going to be in 2 weeks. I have a scheduling conflict because I booked a camp that when cons weren't planning yet and they weren't official again, it's like they booked me. And I would feel like pretty horrible to like back out on this camp that booked me to be their speaker because I want to go to a con.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's going to be a big con, and like they start like a Giancarlo Esposito like a is going to be there. I'm like, I want to go, and like, and then like my the voice actor for Ahsoka Tano is going to be there, and my daughter's like,
Why
are
are
we
we not
going?
going?
I was like, because girl, it's a lot easier for us to get in there and get autographs and stuff when we have a table.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know about all this.
Yeah.
That's just like one of those things. Like I have one of my friends told me that sometimes I have the FOMO thing, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
And like looking at this, I'm like, there's going to be a big con happening, and I'm not going to be there. This could be the one year that somebody like comes and like
Yeah.
needs me, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure God's big enough to handle my absence for a week. And so
Yeah, I made the mistake one year with CCAS that I booked my trip back east to visit family the same week of Comic Con, and I was just like, bought the tickets and everything. I was like, oh, never again will I make this mistake. Like, we cannot. This needs to be blocked every year. Cannot miss this.
And that's normally like how we operate, but it's not like I booked this camp in January and they didn't announce the con until March. That's in July.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah, couldn't have known. So you were saying like you like where you're at, but is there anywhere like if you thought, oh, I would like to do this or focus on this, or is there anywhere like do you feel like you're happy where you are, but you would, or is there other places you would like to go with it?
There's been like you mentioned with Joe, there's some groups that are doing some really good things with using the books as like their materials. I've got some friends that are doing that. I'd like to maybe help more with that stuff because there was one church in Raleigh, North Carolina that put more effort into their study of my books than I put into writing my books. And I was like for like they went so far as to like for every clip and scene that I mentioned, they had it queued up in a file.
Right. Yeah.
And like was studying. I was like, oh man, y'all killed this. Wow.
Yeah.
And I think some stuff on that level would be good. I would like to branch out more in terms of like doing more chapels and church services at cons, but like that's the thing, like I don't think that I have a specific burden other to do more right now other than just being faithful where I'm at. Because like that's one of the things I think that 2020 really gave me perspective on is like more isn't always better.
Yeah.
And looking at, all right, let's just do really well at what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because when everything's shut down and you have to honestly take an honest look at all the things that you're doing, because I realized I was kind of killing myself with how hard I was running and having to be everywhere and having to do everything. It was one, I was doing too much. And I think there was somewhere in the lines of like, am I doing so much to hide from the stuff that I actually need to deal with in my own life? And like, I was like, I know I'm doing good stuff, but am I doing good stuff for the wrong reasons? And so like at this point, I'm just kind of trying to make sure I'm in a healthy place to keep going. Cause like before the pandemic, I was ready to quit in 2020. Like the intro to book 7 was like, I quit, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like it was like I burned the candle too hard. I need to stop. I'm gonna finish. I'm just like it. Literally, original intro to the book said, "I'm gonna do every show in 2020, and then I'm out forever. Peace." and then like, because I wrote that in like November of 2019, and then like come March, I'm like, okay. It's like, well, here's all that rest I needed. So like book 7 has like I literally was sending it in to be published and I'm like, oh, did I ever change that intro? And then I'm like, I went back and changed it and I'm like, so the intro to book 7 has like no effort because like I didn't even realize until the day I was mailing it. I was like, oh, I should probably change this. But I don't know other than just be faithful in it because I want to be able to keep being that presence, but also one of the things that I'm encouraged by is that there are so many other people doing this kind of stuff. And that's
I knew that other people were doing it, but there weren't people in my region doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And now that there are more people in my region doing stuff like that on a basis that's like, God doesn't need me to do this, but if he's going to use somebody, I'm glad to be that person. But at the same time, I'm learning that if I'm not here, he'll supply somebody else.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I saw this because like I had friends in Tennessee, because that's about 6 hours from me. And I would book shows to do in Tennessee. And like I got there and there's another ministry like that has long laid down their establishment of like, we got this. And so it's just like, I'd go there like, thinking, okay, maybe they're not here this year. Nope, they're here. Mm-hmm. And then like the shows have a habit of putting us beside each other. And I'm like, y'all really, I was like, I'm like, I'm over here splashing water on the ocean. I'm like, I'm not needed here. So like there's that thing of like, I know if I go to Eastern Tennessee, they're there and they've got that covered. Yeah. So like I want to be able to stop, if I can get comfortable, like I don't have to cover the world, but as long as I make sure I'm handling my area that God's given me to work with, be comfortable.
Yeah.
Because I kept trying to like go different places and do more, and like I'll take opportunities when they're given. Yeah. But maybe I don't need to express my own validation by how far I can go and how thin I can stretch myself. So
but so a lot of what the books sound like and like I'm really into is like enjoying stories, entertainment, but also the practice of like pulling or looking for things that like you were mentioning, like, oh, they said this line and I'm going to pause this because like that's like almost like God speaking, or that's truth coming to me. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And you were saying like my kids now, they've been trained to say like, oh, because I do feel like, right, like God uses media, right, like can speak to us and reveal truths, but also speak to us directly about something that's going on through something that's said or we read. And so just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on like that whole, because like one thing, like the church that I attend for a few years, they've been doing like the God at the movies, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same principle, right? Like here's
that's
a clip.
That's everybody's comfortable toe in the water. On
that's
that.
Right.
They're like, as long as we know it's just the summer thing, we're just gonna like, we're gonna do this, and then like we're backing off, then we're going back to normal. But yeah.
So just again, you play in that space. Any thoughts on it? Any thoughts on like?
So my big thing on that is that I really do feel like it boils down to the if you seek you will find type situation. Is that most people aren't looking for the meat behind their content. One of the things that I did, and like, so when I'm doing panels and chapel service, not every show will let me have a church service, but they'll let me have a panel.
Yeah.
And there'll be specific guidelines between the difference of the two. So if I do a Faith and Fandom panel, especially at a bigger show, it's not me preaching or, I'll say I'm a Christian pastor. I'm presenting this from my biblical perspective. Your perspectives are welcome. And like, make sure all my boxes are checked.
Yeah.
But I was like, just to point out, I was like, the idea of sacrificial love and of our hearts being burdened and broken and needing redemption. I was like, that's stuff that's in every form of media. And I was like, if we're looking for it, we'll see it. And like, so like, I played the clip of Groot forming the little bubble around everybody. And like, I was like, if you're honest, how many of you have watched Guardians of the Galaxy? How many of you honestly put the thought into of the sacrificial love that's in that one scene? And like, and I was like, comparing this to like what sacrificial love looks like in the Bible, and like just doing that. Like I had one man like crying. He's like, I've never thought of that. And I was like, okay, well, there's that. Or like the two, like I have like a handful of clips that I would show of like Moana, like the thing about our hearts being corrupt and that they need to be redeemed, like the stony heart, the fleshy heart, and like the whole thing with Tafiti, and like people like when you point it out to look for it, you never stop seeing it. It's like the thing with the FedEx logo, like the arrow that's in the FedEx logo. It's like once you point it out, you see it. And for me, I think that stuff is always there. It's just that people don't know to look for it. And for me, I really think it boils down to the two things that I always go back to, or three things biblically I always go back to when I'm trying to not justify what I do, because it's not always under attack, but some people don't always understand it, is I'll go back to the fact that Jesus used parables for a big portion of his teaching. And the stuff that we're delving into are just parallels that people see more often, or that parables that people see more often. But also that and when people say, well, you can't use that's not holy, I'm like, listen, nothing outside of the Bible is going to be holy in our pop culture world. And if you hold the Bible to our self-righteous standards of holiness, the Bible doesn't measure up.
That's right. What they talking about in there?
It's like there's some sketch in there. Like I have a friend that actually wrote a book called The Bible versus Game of Thrones.
Okay.
And it compares like murders, incests, rapes, different things, of like going through all the adult content and like comparing them side by side.
Wow.
But the idea that when Paul is talking, when he used the unknown God to present the gospel of Jesus, he's like, look, here's something that is not holy that all of you are familiar with. Let me use this to point you to the God that I know. And I treat pop culture like the unknown God of this is something you all are familiar with. You all give your time and attention to it. I'm gonna use it to point it back to Jesus. But beyond that, the other one is just the 1 Corinthians 9:22 about I become all things to all people. All means I might win some. Just of like there's a whole sea of people out there who may never hear scripture, but they're passionate about this stuff that they love. And if I can speak to them on a language and point them back to God because of doing that, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to look for it and do it as, but I also hold that in the context, in the light of Romans 14 and Romans 14 to me is the best chapter in scripture on it, standing on its own two legs of what's appropriate and inappropriate for you to take in, read, use, stuff like that. And like how it affects you and your conviction level. Because people say, how can you have that or talk about that? That's not holy. I'm like, if it makes you stumble, you don't need to do it. You need to know where your conviction level lies. And you need to examine your heart to make sure your conviction level's in the right place. And those of like Jesus teaching parables, Paul and the unknown God, becoming all things to all people, and Romans 14 are usually like the things that I kind of share with others as far as the vision of doing this and why I feel it's not only appropriate, but I think it's needed. Because and I've told the story like before, but not to you, I don't think, but I was at a Christian event, and I don't do Christian events very often because it's like splashing water on the ocean. It's they've got it. But I was at a Christian event, and I have a list of all the content that's in each book individually. So you can just go down book 1 and 2, 3 and read through. And the first book came out right when Grand Theft Auto 5 originally dropped. And my college students, because I was a college pastor at that point, my college students, that's all they played. It was their favorite thing. And so like I wrote a devotional on Grand Theft Auto 5. Mainly for them. It was like I preached it as a sermon at our college ministry, and like I like this. And so we were at like a I think I was set up at like a Building 429 concert or something, and it was somebody on those levels. Like New Song was there, Building 429, and somebody else. And this mom was there with her 14-year-old son, looking through the list of stuff at my table. And she's like, Grand Theft Auto, that's sinful. how could you do a Bible study on that? And like, and so I, we're in a church environment. So I'm like, I'm gonna be real with you. I was like, ma'am, that's a game that I doubt you play. So your son probably plays it, right? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, that's a R-rated game that an adult has to buy. So did you buy it for him? She's like, yeah. Are you? I was like, so are you happy with the content of that game? She's like, no. I was like, so you bought your child a game that you don't agree with, that you're unhappy with the content with, but he still plays it every day, doesn't he? She's like, yeah. I was like, so what would you rather have? You to be mad that I wrote a Bible study about it, or B, you give him a Bible study that might actually take his focus from where he's currently at and point him back to God.
Yeah.
She's like, I'll take one of everything. And that's the thing, like a lot of the times when people have problems with any type of ministry on this level, it's usually because something in their own self-righteousness kicks back at it. Like, this doesn't fit with the rules that I put on myself. And it's rarely that not that I can speak for the Spirit. I think it's rarely as Spirit led as they think, and more of their own religious standards that they placed on it. And now there might be some people that they, say, I can't be involved in that. And that's good. If that's the Spirit, follow that. But if it's not, you might should check yourself. But it's up to, you literally do have to check yourself, because sometimes that, I'm sure there are lines for certain people, and you've got to be sensitive to that.
Well, that's good. I mean, I feel like you probably don't run into that a ton. Some, obviously, like with CCAS, Christian Comic Art Society, like us having Christian right in the name, right? Like, it's going to automatically, have people thinking whatever they're thinking, either pros, cons, neutral, or whatever, right? Like Faith and Fandom, I feel like that's a great name, right? Like, that can go wherever. So, but that is a good point, because you just have various people, how they interact with what you're doing.
And I'll say 90% of the people who have been mostly offended have been Christians. And then there's been, people of different lifestyles or opinions or focuses that are offended were even in the room, but not because they've actually had a conversation with us. And then usually after they've had a conversation with us, they're like, okay, never mind.
That's all right. That's good. Well, thank you, brother. Thank you for taking this time. I thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you, getting to know what you do. And I really hope that our paths cross more and more often.
Me too, man.
I look forward to checking out the books and, having CCAS even use them more. I think they're going to be great seeds that we want to help spread as well.
I'll just say this: you don't have to start with book one, and I kind of recommend don't start with book one. Book one was me not knowing what I was doing, and everybody involved in that from beginning to end were rookies. So if you really want to jump ahead, jump to book 5 and go. Everything's good. I'm proud of it all, but don't start with book one.
That's like your first comic book you make. It's all right. I was learning, right? Like,
it's
a few comic books.
I don't know. Like, I wrote my first comic.
Excellent.
For there's a friend of mine that I met doing cons on our booths. We're next to each other. He's putting out, he has a superhero called Ace Blade, and I wrote a story for his new comic.
Excellent.
So it's being written right now. Or no, it's written, it's being illustrated. So I'm getting like daily updates from the artist of.
How do you like the process of writing it?
It's fun. Like I like print media of like, I write this and it's done. Writing this and then it like going into somebody else's hands forever. Like, because I had that experience a year and a half ago. I wrote an entire comic book for a guy who owned a property.
Okay.
And he said, I want to make this into a comic. Write me a whole issue.
Okay.
So I wrote and storyboarded an entire issue of a comic, and nothing ever came from it. Like he didn't move forward with it, and that's just hit the way the speed he moves. But like, you know, I think depending on other people and all the other aspects, it's just like,
yeah,
I'm
it's
not
very
patient.
collaborative. Yeah,
It is very collaborative, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm not ready for this level of patience.
yeah. Are you getting pages turning in where you can see the art?
Yes,
on, what
on
you've
this
written?
one I am. He's sending it like, because this was a really quick thing of like they hit me with it Friday. I was still at that camp in Alabama, and he's like, hey, do you want this? And I'm like, yes. Like, we'll turn this in, and I did, and they're like, all right, we've got 20 days to get it into the book. And I'm like,
wow.
Okay. So
how have you like seen the pages of what you've written?
It's really nice because comparing my storyboards to the what actually, I was like, oh man, this is so much better. As I was like, oh,
great job, guys.
Like, glad I'm a writer. This is, my junk looks horrible compared to, but yeah, they're killing it.
Oh, that's great. All right, brother. Well, tell me the website so people know where to find you, where else to find you, and all things.
You can trace most everything to faithandfandom.org.
Okay.
You can find all the books in the blog section. One of the things I do really like about the website is we've got it sectioned off so that you can click in book by the book individually. So you can click book 7, book 8, do that. But you can also click Marvel. All the Marvel chapters, all the DC chapters. So that's a great website feature. So faithandfandom.org. Our most interaction is on our website, our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/faithandfandom, all spelled out. Our podcast is,
that's where the memes happen.
The memes happen. The memes also happen on our Instagram, which is Faith and Fandom, but you're going to catch my random family stuff in there too. So you can, either way, because I realized I don't care enough about either of these to run 2 Instagram accounts.
Yeah.
Like, that's just too much. I was like, I already run our church's Instagram account. I'm not doing another one.
Yeah.
And then our podcast you can get through the website, but like the actual website for it is faithandfandom.podbean.com. And you can check out a lot of stuff there. I think we're about 250 episodes there.
Wow.
And then on the website, when you add all of our chapters together, I think we're over 160 devotionals.
All right.
So there's a bunch of content.
Yeah, great. I can't wait to check it out. All right, brother. In closing, anything that you've been encouraged from lately, that in show or movie that stuck out or just comes to mind? That you've been doing Dragon Ball Z, but I don't know if that had something recent.
Yeah, that's recent stuff, but like I think I don't want to do anything low key because I know it's still spoiler sensitive. But one of the things that we've really been really encouraged by was with I'll probably just say WandaVision. One of the things that we wrote recently, but also just that really spoke my heart was like actually dealing and processing with the stuff that you're feeling. And the fact that when we're not actually dealing with the stuff in our own hearts in a healthy way, it manifests in ugly ways within us. And we wrote a whole devotional on that, but like that was really just healthy and cathartic for me to like I got a lot from this, and it was like, do some good reflection on my own self with it. So but no, that's I've got a meme for it, but there's I have to go back, but like I can't remember. There's if you check out the WandaVision devotional on the website, there's some, I think, my heart pretty much in a snapshot on that. But I think that's probably been one of the most healthy things for me. And then also like really the whole thing with Batman Black and White #2 that Tom King wrote about the, how do we honestly look at God in terms of our prayer life, and what are we actually doing with our prayer life? So those have been some big reflection points for me lately. And I'm currently writing one on Uncle Iroh from Avatar, and Howl's Moving Castle. So doing some stuff with that, because like Howl's Moving Castle, the whole, it kind of goes right along with the WandaVision thing of one of the big lines from that is, a heart's a heavy burden to bear.
Mhm.
And like, just I think that's if I probably look at everything all together over the last year, there's probably a lot about effectively dealing with your heart, and from the sinful state of it, broken state of it in different areas. But yeah, it's just been some big focus on for me lately.
That's great. That's great. Well, again, thank you, brother. Thank you for sharing, and I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.